Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. Happy birthday to the New York Building Congress. 100 years ago today. It is, to put it in perspective, today is the Queen's 95th birthday. We are 5 years older than Queen Elizabeth. And that is a testament to the firms, to the people, but really most importantly to the tenacity of the New York Building Congress. It's an honor to welcome you all here today. This is beginning of a year and a half of celebrations of what have we accomplished, where are we going, what are we doing. I can't think of a better time than to celebrate 100 years of building New York than the moment when New York needs a reason to celebrate, when New York needs to get pumped up, to feel good about itself, to feel good about tomorrow, to feel good about reopening, to feel good about the skyline, the jobs, the people, and the future. And I think what we're doing today is kicking off an amazing year ahead. So thank you all for being here. Thank you to the chairs of the Centennial Commission, Dominic Servideo of STV and Frank Siame of Siame Construction. Gentlemen, thank you for all you do. It is truly an honor to have you serve as our chairs, and we're very excited. We've got a couple of big announcements to make today. One is that, and you'll hear about many of our events shortly, but we have just signed with the Javits Center to be one of their first big major New York events in their big major New York ballroom and rooftop. So we will be kicking off the renaissance of the Javits Center on November 18th, right up there in their new space. And we are really excited. It's a testament to what our industry can do. And I know Turner Construction is very excited about that, since they are leading the charge at rebuilding Javits with Lend-Lease, FX Collaborative, and so many others. So we deserve to raise a glass, and I've got my glass all ready for a little toast shortly, because these are moments to celebrate everything about the building industry, and particularly the challenges that you all have overcome as leaders in this industry. So before we toast, let me thank our Excelsior sponsors who made today possible. Bravo and EHAB, thank you. Global Infrastructure Solutions, John Dionisio, thank you. Halmar International, Chris Larson, thank you. Siame Construction, Frank Siame, thank you. SL Green Corp, Mark Holliday and Ed Piccinich, thank you. STV, Dominic Servideo and Greg Kelly, thank you. And Suffolk Construction, John Fish, Ralph Esposito, and Charlie Avolio, thank you. Now, I wish I had a drum roll. We were just advised about, 20 minutes ago by Patty Filippo and Charlie Murphy from Turner and Peter Davern, of course, who you'll be hearing from soon, that Turner Construction is not only an Excelsior, but they are an Excelsior Plus sponsor for our centennial. Peter, I know you're here, so I could tell you thank you visually, but Pat and Charlie, I know you're watching us, thank you. I have to tell you, with Turner's contribution, we are $145,000 away from our goal of $3 million for our centennial year. And I think we're gonna reach 4 million the way we're going. And what does that mean? It means truly an opportunity to really highlight, showcase, and finally applaud and give credit to all of you in this industry for putting us to work, for getting us to work, for building our homes, building our children's schools, building our hospitals, building our bridges, our tunnels, everything. We live because of the industry that you all represent. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you, of course, to our Century, our Empire, and our Skyline supporters. So look, you're going to hear shortly from our charter members. And to tell you who they are, let me go back 100 years. Think about the city 100 years ago today. A devastating virus had just hit the United States. A new administration was settling into the White House with some grand ideas. Buildings no one ever thought were so tall that could be built were being built in Manhattan and even in Brooklyn. 25 architects, engineers, builders, and tradespeople gathered in Robert D. Cohen's office to make sure the building industry led the way for decades ahead. And it's interesting, if you look at 1921, there were a lot of things happening. The Port Authority was about to be formed. A bunch of chambers of commerces were being formed. It was about from 1917 till the mid-20s that many organizations were formed. So 10 of the firms from that day remain active members of the Building Congress. They may have changed over time, but they have remained the bedrock and the foundation of the New York Building Congress. And to all of you charter members, I truly salute you, not because of the Building Congress, not because of anybody on this screen. I salute you because you revolutionized not just New York City, not just New York State, not just the region. You revolutionized the way we look, the way we feel, and the way we build across the United States. So a salute to all of our charter members, and thank you for all that you do. Now I have the honor to introduce someone who has been a beacon for the industry and the Building Congress as well. Elizabeth Velez is the president of the Velez Organization, a family-owned construction company started by her father in 1972. In January 2020, think about this, folks, she became the first Latina to chair the Building Congress in 100 years, and only the second woman to chair the Building Congress in 100 years. And Elizabeth, I can't think of a better moment for you to be chairing our organization than when we celebrate 100 years. So it's my honor to welcome the chair of the board of the New York Building Congress, my dear friend, Elizabeth Velez.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. And I'll say it again. You gentlemen look amazing for being 100 years old. So I salute you too with my old fashions in my amazing 100 years glass for the New York Building Congress. Thank you, Carlo. It is truly an honor to chair the New York Building Congress in its 100th year. The construction industry may have changed tremendously since 1921, but our spirit has not. New York is still the greatest city on earth, and it has earned that distinction in large part because of the people at this event, the people that literally have built us as a city and as a state and as a nation, the organizations that you represent and the brilliant, hardworking New Yorkers that you also represent. The Building Congress has brought us all together so that we can advocate to build the projects that make New York as great as it is, from roads and subways to skyscrapers, affordable housing, schools, hospitals, parks, and so much more. We have done it all, and tonight's panelists have seen it all. The people that you'll hear from represent the Building Congress members who were there when New York put up the Triborough Bridge during the Great Depression, and they were still here when we built 2 world-class ballparks during the Great Recession. I am so thrilled to hear them discuss this history as well as what's ahead, because we still have a lot to do to diversify our workforce, build the public works of the 21st century, and continue to lead the way toward a prosperous future. With that, I am pleased to introduce one of our Centennial co-chairs, Frank Siami. In addition to all the great work that he does for the Building Congress, Frank serves as chairman and CEO of Siami Construction, a firm that he founded in 1975, and previously he has chaired the New York Building Congress. I will now hand it over to him. Salute you, Frank.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And again, Turner, thank you for becoming an Excelsior Plus sponsor. Turner Construction is great. And I want to thank Joe Mizzi, Siami president and COO partner, who enthusiastically supported being an Excelsior sponsor. I'm really proud to co-chair the Centennial Committee with the legendary Dominic Savidio. Both of us decided to give a good deal of time this year because we believe in the Building Congress and everything it has done for our industry. All of us built this city, and we have always been there in times of need. This year is an opportunity to reflect on everything we've accomplished in good times and in bad times, and to celebrate. Tonight is just the beginning. We plan to release a commemorative book, a documentary, and an exhibit in the year ahead. We need your support to make those things a reality. If you haven't already, please consider becoming a Centennial sponsor. I would now like to introduce the author of that Centennial commemorative book, Sam Lubell, who previously wrote Never Built New York, and who will moderate tonight's discussion, a discussion with the leaders of our 7 charter member firms, pillars of our industry, with, I am sure, battle scars to prove it. I can't wait to hear these conversations. Thank you. Sam, it's all yours.
Hey, Frank, thank you so much. I appreciate the introduction, and I appreciate the opportunity to moderate this panel with these amazing panelists. It's first of all, these are, just thinking about this, these are charter members. These are firms that have been around and part of the Congress for 100 years. And what lasts 100 years anymore? I don't think anything does, except for, as Carlo smartly pointed out, Queen Elizabeth, almost. I did not know she was turning 95 today. That's amazing. But really, it's a pleasure to speak to these gentlemen. I've been talking to a number of them on the 100th anniversary book, and it's been a wonderful conversation so far. Really fascinating. They represent builders, developers, engineers, just like the Congress does. And over the last 100 years, these folks and then their firms have been involved, by extension, their firms, they haven't been alive for 100 years, obviously, but their firms have been involved with many of the defining buildings and infrastructure of this city. And that goes from the first World Trade Center to the second World Trade Center, from the early subways to the Second Avenue subway, from the original LaGuardia to LaGuardia that's now being completed a whole new time. From Rock Center to Hudson Yards, and from One Chase Manhattan Plaza to One Vanderbilt. Kind of amazing when you think about what's been achieved. And they weathered so much. They just, the resilience is also impressive. They weathered recessions. Now they've weathered pandemics. They've weathered floods, of course. And sadly, they've weathered attacks. And they've been resilient, and they've been able to cope with that. They've also been able to adjust and thrive as the field changes beyond recognition in terms of technology, efficiency, safety, this sheer complexity, and also diversity. And they're, together with the Congress, they're improving and striving to make the construction world in New York better and better. And I've just really, really enjoyed so far working with them and with the Congress, and really I'm excited to welcome them all. So I'm gonna tell you their names, and then I'm gonna give each one a chance to just give you a little bit of background, who they are, although I assume you know for the most part. So we have Jay, there's 7 of them. So not everybody's gonna get to talk for every question, so we just wanna give you guys a heads up. But anyway, everybody's gonna get a chance to talk. We got Jay Badami, Cliff Akins, Tony Mann, Mitch Simpler, Richard Kennedy, Dominic Servedio, and Peter DeVore. And before we start, I'm going to raise my New York Building Congress glass to all of you. And each one of you, please introduce yourselves.
So I'll start off. I assume we'll go in alphabetical order. I'm Jay Badami, president of AECOM's Construction Management Division, which of course oversees 400 projects in the US. I oversee 2,200 professionals out of the AECOM world of 55,000. I'm happy to be here. I never thought that when I graduated from Penn State in 1978 that I would be running one of the largest construction companies in the country. So happy to be here and happy to answer any questions. And I hope Elizabeth sends me some softballs.
Cliff, you want to introduce yourself?
I'm muted. There we go. So I cut my teeth at Structure Tone for 10 years. And then I went to MIT and Harvard University where I got master's degrees. And then in my spare time, I've been at Caldwell Wingate for 25 years this July. So I've been here almost a quarter of our 111-year existence.
Wow. How about Peter? You want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Peter Davern, Executive Officer for Turner Construction Company. I've never worked for anyone else other than Turner in my over 40-year career. Our company is one of 10,000 employees. We have trade partners that are total about 120,000 workers, and mostly my time has been in New York, and I'm so enthusiastic about our industry and just so completely passionate about what our industry is doing now to eliminate hate and bias. It's just truly remarkable. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Richard Kennedy?
Yeah, so hi everyone, Richard Kennedy from Skanska. Last week actually was my 17th year with Skanska. I cut my teeth in the New York operation and now I'm responsible for our operations across the US. Fantastic company, and I have great respect for all of my competitor firms on the Zoom call here. And like Jay, I sort of never expected myself to be in this position, but here I am, and it's a fantastic position. Skanska is a great company. New York's an amazing city. I think that word can come up over and over again in this conversation. And like Peter, I would say I'm just so enthusiastic about the industry that we're working in. When you look back at the last 100 years, the amazing things that we've done and our prospects going forward. Even though we're going through a tough time now, I think we have amazing prospects going forward as an industry. And I'm happy to be here and talk about the Building Congress and our prospects as an industry forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Let's also have Tony Mann.
Hi, I'm Tony Mann. I'm President and CEO of EJ Electric, and I want to congratulate the other 6 charter members. EJ is celebrating its 122nd year this year. And I'm 3rd generation in the business, and we now have my daughter Isabel, who's the 4th generation in the business. So we're very excited about it. And I was excited to see pictures go up before we got going of Yonkers street lighting, which we did, the original Yonkers street lighting, Astoria Studios in Queens. And then, didn't see pictures of, but more recently, Yankee Stadium, Barclays Center, LaGuardia Airport are also exciting. But to me, it's the people. It's the other 6 charter members. You see what amazing individuals we have and everyone on this call that builds New York. It's the people that make it happen. So congratulations to everyone.
Excellent. And let's have Dominic, you want to go, please?
Dominic Savidio. I'm the chairman of STV. I've been with STV for close to 45 years. I started my career on the rail side. I was one of the first 50 employees of the MTA. And from the MTA, I came to STV. I've been proud to be part of this industry and to work with so many great people. Many of those who are part of this panel and are participating with us. So for me, it's just been, everybody asked, is it really true that you can say that every single day you are happy going to work? And I say, absolutely. Some days a little happier than other days, but absolutely.
That's amazing. I hope we can all remember that. Mitch Simpler from JB&B, do you want to speak?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mitch Simpler, partner and managing partner emeritus of JB&B Consulting Engineers. The rumors of my retirement have been greatly exaggerated. I am still a full working partner. I've been with JB&B since 1977. So like Dominic, I'm in my 45th year, July 11th, it'll be 45 years even. And it's a real privilege to be on the call, but most importantly, it's a privilege to be associated with such a tremendous group of professionals. JB&B has, as you know, obviously a founding member of Building Congress, saw back then how important it was for our industry, and we continue to support it and will continue to do so as long as I have something to do about it. But this is a great industry with tremendously incredible people that support each other and our city. And my hope is that we continue to do so in the manner to which we've become accustomed. So to the Building Congress.
Cheers to that. And let me add, and my apologies, we actually have one more member of the panel. They were late at and a really good one. We have Lou Coletti from the Building Trades Employers Association. Lou, why don't we have you, if you can, introduce yourself as well.
Thanks, Sam, and good evening, everyone. I am just so proud to be here with such a great group of people working in a great industry. I'm the president of the Building Trades Employers Association, an organization that represents 26 trade contractor associations and construction managers and 1,200 companies who last year put in place over $60 billion worth of work in New York City. I'm very proud and honored to say I was the first president of the New York Building Congress, not 100 years ago. But I then went to work for Laird McGovern for 6 years and came to the BTA. This is a great industry. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to lead a New York City resurgence.
That's excellent. And thank you all for doing a great job introducing yourselves. I appreciate it. I think the only other mess up I made, Peter, I think I mispronounced your last name.
That's okay.
So
I've been called worse. Sam, it's okay.
That's a good way to look at it. Very positive. So let's start. As I said, not everybody's going to get to answer every question, but feel free to chime in, and I'll try to direct the conversation a bit. And the first question I have is really kind of piggybacking on what I was saying before, just the amount of change that there's been. 100 years, there's obviously going to be a lot of change, but that change, as we all know, has come much more quickly in the last few years. And my question is, in the time over the last 100 years, can be any time in that amazing span of time, what is the biggest change that you've seen in the industry? So it could be the technologies I'm talking about, could be the amount of complexity, could be in how the industry looks. So I'm going to throw it out there and see if somebody wants to chime in on that.
Richard, can I take the stage here, guys, just for a second? I thought a lot. I think it's a great question, and I have kind of a simple answer. I'd say it's safety is the thing I think that's changed the most in the industry. If you look at some of those photos, you have those black and white photos from the past, kind of the harm's way that we allowed people to put themselves in building this great city of ours, and we've changed that. And I'm proud to be a part of that. I know that my competitors here on the call are too. We've talked about this in BTA meetings. Great focus on worker safety, right from basic PPE up through the hierarchy of controls. Now we're moving to designing safety into our projects. I think that's a great development. I hope we continue with that.
I think that's an excellent point, Richard. It's kind of working on this 100th anniversary book, looking at some of the guys dangling off of the steel in the 1920s. I concur that it's certainly been changing a lot. It's an interesting way to get a perspective. So this let's try to just call out one or two more big changes, and then we can kind of dig into those.
Sam,
Yeah, go, Mitch.
I say everything has changed. Our clients have changed. New York has changed. The business industry, communications, our staffs have changed. That's all good stuff. But the one thing that hasn't changed has been what we do and how we do it, right? Our job is to provide the place to live, play, and work for New Yorkers, and that will not change. So how we do it, what we do, and why we do it, I think is what keeps us all going to work every day.
Nice, nice. You also read my mind on one of my follow-up questions, which is even better.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're exactly right. Like just the more things change, there's certain things that have to stay in place, and obviously the Congress is one of them, and the way that the companies that'll last as long as your companies do have to be doing something. They have to be changing with the times, but there's some
You have
things
to
that have to
adapt.
stay the same too. All right, let's look for one more major change, and then I'm gonna dig in a little bit more onto this, how this kind of comes about.
I'll add to that. If I'm going to be going, Tony has a hand up, but I spoke first. What you didn't see on that,
It's
Why
like
don't you go,
Jeopardy.
Jay?
We're gonna have clickers.
yeah, hands up, and then you won't be able to get over. You didn't see any diversity on that beam from years ago. You didn't see any women. You didn't see any people of color. And I do agree with Richard that safety has, went from the bottom of the list of importance to really the top of the list of importance. We all have safety protocols now that we probably did not have 20 years ago, or if we had them 20 years ago, we said we did, and we really didn't believe it. And the other thing, the major change has been you still need men, women to build projects, but years ago, this was 100% union town, and then it's no longer the case. So that's probably the other biggest significant change that this city has seen probably in the last 25 years, not in the last 100, but the last 25 years. So I agree with a lot of Richard's comments along the safety. We all live and breathe that every day.
Yeah, these are vital changes. And if somebody that has not been able to weigh in yet, I'm curious, these are not easy changes to make. So how do you see these through? How do you see these through as an industry and make sure, the safety happens and make sure that the diversity happens? What are some of the ways that you're making this possible?
I think Peter wants to speak. I can see it.
All right.
Go ahead,
This is how
Tony.
we're doing it. We're gonna.
I'll jump in. At EJ Electric, we're taking on safety ourselves and diversity and inclusion, the two things that were mentioned within our companies. We have our own committees, but as an industry, what makes us great, and I'll take safety example and Lou's here with the BTA. Our head of safety is co-chair of the BTA Safety Committee. Everyone's sharing ideas. So every one of these companies here has someone on that committee. Everyone shares best practices, and we all get better, and we all want to get better. And diversity and inclusion, the Building Congress has stepped up and formed diversity and inclusion committee. And again, we're all sharing best ideas, best practices, and that's what makes us such a great industry, is our own companies plus our associations that really drive us.
That's great. That's great. So it's a good point. You brought up the Congress and the kind of cooperation that goes on between the Congress and all the players involved. What to me is the most impressive thing about the Congress, and I was looking at the annual reports from the 1920s and 30s, and they were talking about this back then, is just this idea that it represents everybody in the building trades. It's kind of exceptional in almost any industry that way. It's obviously you have architects, you have engineers, construction manager, you have labor, kind of everybody in the same room. So I'm wondering on, how is that possible? How does somebody with such a wide, how does an organization with such a wide constituency effectively advocate for that, that wide of a group? Richard, I see you're nodding your head, so I'm going to let you weigh in on this one.
Sure, I can jump in. So it's interesting. I work for a large Swedish company. We're based in Stockholm, Sweden, but we have a huge presence in the US. About half of the company is here in the US, construction and development. And sometimes they'll ask me that they're curious, my colleagues at the group level, about the US market. And I said, this is real capitalism here. This is a little different than what you're accustomed to. And that capitalism drives us into different camps. We have strong contractual relationships. We can get sort of segmented and fragmented as an industry. But I think the Building Congress just brings us all together. As Tony said, it supports us in collaborating and cooperating with each other, sharing best practices. And I think it helps us all to step back and look at our industry from a high level and appreciate what it is. It's an amazing industry. We're all part of it. The Building Congress celebrates that. It promotes us. And I think it's sort of the institutional glue amongst many, many different institutions. So those are my thoughts.
Right.
Tim, if I may.
Yes, please.
I think it really goes back to the vision and leadership of the tremendous talent that we had in this industry. I call them the founding fathers, the people who set the foundation to build the new and had the vision of knowing what the Building Congress could do and bringing us all together. People like Jack Rudin, Peter Brennan, who was the head of the building trades, but a former Secretary of Labor, George Fox, Bob Picard, John Hennessy. Those are the individuals that years ago saw the importance of bringing everybody together and led the way to grow the Building Congress to the point it is today.
And it seems like that's a really good point. I mean, the people are everything. And it seems to me like having looked over the last, on my way to look at over the last 100 years at the way the Building Congress works, the connection, I mean, sort of being a voice in the room, the Congress seems to have a much louder voice now. I mean, and that seems, and maybe somebody has an experience where they've been able to, effectively maybe talk to a mayor or governor or legislator or kind of get their voices heard in a way that, they maybe can't individually, but they can through the Congress. Has anybody had an experience like that because of the Congress? Cliff, you had your finger raised.
Yeah, if I may, I'm going to go backwards a little bit and just talk about the Building Congress. I read the mission statement last week because I was curious what the goal of the Congress was. And I wrote down this excerpt that I thought nailed it exactly. In the mission statement, it says, it's a forum that advances the industry-wide agenda of professional exchange. And I think that's absolutely what it is.
That's true. I mean, the exchange is key. Nobody can operate in a vacuum. I mean, I don't think that's ever been the case, but now I think that's extremely the case.
Yeah.
So let me take a little turn and talk about the industry at large, and kind of I briefly mentioned some of the challenges that the industry has kind of weathered over the years, and recently, unfortunately, we've had quite a few of them, including one obviously that we're going through now. That's why we're all digital. But over the last 100 years, last 50 years, I guess, what has been, in your opinion, the biggest kind of test, the biggest challenge facing the industry? Dominic, I know that you mentioned you're the closest maybe to 100, so you've got the global perspective on this. Maybe you can go first on this one.
Dubious distinction, though.
It's an amazing distinction. I hope I can, yeah.
Listen, I still remember the Building Congress Christmas parties and the stage show that was put on by a members, all male cast. So we've come a long way.
There will not be any more stage shows, so don't worry, no more stage shows.
But
this is as close as we get.
But if I think of the biggest impact on our industry, I would have to say without a doubt, 9/11, followed by Sandy, and now dealing with the COVID. I think these have been the three tests. And again, if you want to be proud of an industry, look at how our industry responded during those three that I just talked about now.
Dominic, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, Peter, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, I have to tell you that I couldn't agree more with Dominic. And I think that, if you go back in time, when I was growing up in the industry early on, our industry was starving for recognition. We were still doing a lot of wonderful things, but we were starving for recognition and really didn't get it. And I think that we were starving for recognition, and we fought with labor every day. It was really a tough business. And today I feel more passionately about the business than the last 20 years. And, of course, we're all working harder than we ever worked, but think of those last 20 years and some of the things that have been built. You think about, STV building the police academy, Siami building the Morgan Library, or the Perlman downtown. You think of Skanska and LaGuardia and Farley Station. And you think of Lend Lease being the managing partner at Javits. We miss you, Ralph. And, you know, you talk about Tishman, what they did out the World Trade Center. And if you think about labor today is more aligned with our message about active caring than ever before. I went to a eliminate hate and bias training on a project with Local 40, Local 60, 361, and Local 580. And Gary LaBarbera was in the room, you know, actually participating on the training. So, you know, so that now you've got, now you've got an industry that's now has some recognition. It has some strategic partners, and then it gets representation by the New York Building Congress, the Building Trades Employers Association, Contractors Association of Greater New York. All of those entities, we're getting the recognition that we duly deserve. And what's most important is that the message out there is to eliminate hate and bias, give people an opportunity, create equity for as everywhere that we can go in our industry, and actively care for others. This has been a huge change in the last, since 9/11. That has been the largest change that I've seen in the industry today. And I tell you, if you want to be part of something wonderful, you want to join the building industry in New York City.
I think that's a wonderful way to put it. It makes me think about you know, all the changes that have gone by, and it's sort of the buildings that have been put up are legacies forever, or not forever, but for a long time. And I want to know, I've got this kind of dream team of leaders here. So of the buildings that have gone up, do you have any favorites? And this is all 5 boroughs, by the way. What is your favorite building over the last 100 years?
So I can obviously pinch myself and say it's, you know, all the buildings at the World Trade Center, Hudson Yards, Carnegie Hall, Barclays Center, the New Islands Arena. I mean, really just to name a few, but, you know, I could steal everybody's thunder by keep going on, but I think my competitors would probably send me nasty texts because they've probably got their own.
Jay, we would never do that, Jay. Come on.
Avron and I just finished the Rams Arena in Los Angeles, and we're ready to start the Clippers as joint venture partners. So even though we're all competitors in a big space, and I call New York it's really the big little town because everybody knows each other, and there's over 8 million people here. But the fact that we know each other, we'll have coffee with each other, we'll have cigars with each other, we'll still compete with each other. But the fact that we're all on this call together talking about each other in a nice way, and I think Peter's introduction and what he just said, the remarks. So Peter was able to rattle off all the projects that he and his competitors did. So that just is a testament to Peter knowing the rest of the community. And I think Richard could probably do the same. I could do the same. So we all watch everybody, and I think we marvel at the talents that this industry has. And the things that we have built collectively is really what makes BTEA and New York Building Congress the success that they are.
Inspiring. Not many industries probably like that, and that's a testament to the Building Congress, I must say. I mean, this has been fostering like this for years, this kind of communication.
To further Jay's point, though, it's amazing. You go through the projects and they do geographic from Lower Manhattan, the World Trade Center, all the way up to Columbia, Manhattanville. The number of people that have been involved in that, virtually everybody on this call has some input and had something to do with those. So as much as we do as an industry, it's amazing how close it is, both from competitors and peers. And for that, it's really a privilege to be part of that.
You know, if I can, to go back to Dominic's point about 9/11 and what a momentous event that was. Think about this. While everybody was running away from that site, it was the design and construction industry that was running to that site.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's inspiring. And I have to, Dominic, I have to ask you again, because you are a resident expert on these things. Do you have a favorite? Do you have a favorite building over the last 100 years?
You know, there's so many favorite buildings and so much great work that has been done in this city. For me personally, the hub, the World Trade Center site, As Lou says, our industry ran in, our industry cleaned it up, and our industry rebuilt it. And it's very difficult to find a single project that now is an iconic gateway, that it's a destination, it's a memorial, and it's a place of reflection. So to me, that project symbolizes our industry, and that it took so many different companies and so many people dedicated to doing that job, and the cooperation among designers, laborers, every firm that worked on it. It was an emotional project, a project that they didn't want to leave until it was complete. So I would have to really go on the rebuilding of the World Trade Center side.
That's beautifully put. And Peter, I want to ask you, because I mean, almost everyone here in some ways worked on the Trade Center, but your firm, I understand, had worked on both iterations of the World Trade Center. Am I wrong about that?
I think you may be talking about Jay's company. Jay's company, Tishman, built the original building back in the 70s.
Of course.
And then built most of the buildings down there.
Of course.
But Sam,
And don't forget about the engineers, by the way, guys. We did the original and the new. So.
Yeah, see, this is what I'm saying.
Richard
it's such an
Kennedy's
amazing teamwork
company
here.
was down there all for a long period of time, and just the rail hub is just a beautiful building.
It's so cool. I mean, Peter, I was a little kid. I grew up in Bayonne, New Jersey. I could see the tip of the World Trade Center from my bedroom. When I joined Skanska, I learned that Skanska Koch, our steel erection company, erected the steel in the 70s. I mean, it was just like, it was fantastic to know that.
It's a lot.
Sam, could you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an honest mistake to confuse Turner with the World Trade Center. Everyone in this industry respects each other, except my mother. I brought her into the city. We drove around town. All she saw was Turner signs. She said, "Who is Turner?" I said, "Mom, they've been in business over 100 years." She said, "I don't care. They have too many signs." I'm gonna forget it.
Frank, as the person who used to run Skanska's building operations in New York, I agree with your mom. I don't know.
Definitely a lot
Frank,
of those signs.
we talk about a lot of great projects.
Yeah, Tony, go ahead.
So Frank was talking about his mother driving around New York, and I love driving around, as my kids grew up, showing them all the projects that were built, that we had a hand in. And you look at some of them: the National Tennis Center, the planetarium at the Museum of Natural History, jazz at Lincoln Center, which Peter was involved in, by the way. But it's the infrastructure that doesn't get talked about as much. What makes New York work? And you look at, we built 3 500 megawatt power plants in New York to power New York. The Kosciuszko Bridge was just built, which you can see, but it's the stuff that Frank's mother won't see. It's, the underground. It's the Second Avenue subway. The number 7 line was just built. And the Croton Water Treatment Plant, you don't see anything. It treats all the water for New York City. So many people on this call, the engineers, the contractors, played a big role in what no one sees and what really makes New York work. And I'm really, really proud of that.
I think that's an excellent point. Obviously there's these amazing projects, but there's just so much behind the scenes, and there's so many projects that New York would not function without them. So that's another worth another drink of.
Yeah, I mean, Lou touched on it earlier.
Sam,
Right, there's $60 billion worth of work that was put in place last year.
Yeah.
And that's an amazing feat, no matter where you are. But to do that on an island made out of rock is really quite a feat.
Absolutely. It's
Sam, it's Dick Anderson. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hey, Dick.
A voice from the past.
Yeah.
A big voice from the past.
The biggest single capital program, of course, for the last several decades was the MTA. And we had a great deal to do with designing and building and operating the metropolitan transportation system. And of course, now we're faced with the rebuilding and the rescuing of that system. And so the challenges don't quit. But the MTA program is something we can be proud of, and we have to commit ourselves to for the future.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's amazing just seeing, I'm looking at all the panelists and all the firms that have worked on, you see MTA, but then you talk about Moynihan Station and everybody who's worked on that here, and you see the Second Avenue subway and just this infrastructure we're talking about, just kind of unbelievable in this city, what people have done. I have one other question, which is, we're looking back. I think Dominic, did you have a point you wanted to make?
Yeah, I mean, I think seeing Dick join us, and Dick, you look well. We look at the success of the Building Congress, and we need to recognize the leadership of the Building Congress over these years. And you've got three leaders that are present here. I want to talk and represent the industry by thanking you, Lou, thanking you, Dick, and thanking you, Carlo, for your leadership over the years.
Cheers to that. Cheers to that.
Exactly, Dominic. That's
Hear,
why,
hear.
yeah, that's
If
why
I
when
can,
Dick showed
Dominic,
up.
thank you very much for that. But that leadership and vision was what I was talking about before with the founding fathers. And I left out Joe Newman from Tishman Research. It was the volunteers. It was the architects, the engineers, the contractors, the labor representatives who all got together, wanted the Building Congress to be more than it was. And just look where we are today, thanks to that leadership. So I'm very touched, Dominic, especially from you for those comments, but never underestimate the importance of the volunteer leadership in this industry and the professional engineering, architecture, and construction and labor. That's what holds us all together.
You know what? Here to that. Here to that. And Elizabeth, I think that you have a question for everybody.
Uh-oh.
You asked all the easy ones, Sam, so get ready. No, absolutely. I want to thank all of our panelists for really, I think all of you have woven into your comments about how different the industry is today. And with the events in Minneapolis and Jay and Peter, you talking about bias and hate and needing to change that. I wanted to go a little bit deeper into that. You know, we know that the Building Congress has a wonderful equity and inclusion task force, and now it's a council. So I know what we're doing as an industry collectively to share best practices, but is anyone on the call want to share something specific that you're doing within your own firms to kind of level the playing field? It could be in procurement, it could be in workforce development. We'd love to hear it.
Sure. From our point of view, first of all, there has to be zero tolerance towards any hate and bias. And it is zero tolerance on any one of our projects. Which means if somebody draws graffiti, job has to get shut down and evaluated as to why. And the most important part is that if there is bad behavior on a project, we need to go and support the person that may be intended for. That's what's most important. Finding that empathy, because we've learned so much over the last year. So eliminating hate and bias is probably paramount through the active caring model by making sure people are treated with respect and dignity all the time, fully equitable by everyone. And also, I think, we're 118 years old and we've been operating in a specific way for 118 years. And then last year we had to really look at ourselves. And now we are operating as to what we aspire to become in the next 118 years. So that means we have to do an equity audit. We need to look at the demographics, and we have to look at the number of people that we have, who they are, how they were hired. Does everyone get the same kind of experience, or does one person get a better experience than another? Does a white male get a better experience with me because we look alike, and try to create an environment where if you are going to work for a company like ours, you look inside that company and you potentially see yourself. So our whole aura at the moment is eliminate hate and bias, actively care for people, create an environment where people can be at their best and be authentic at the same time.
That's perfect. Anyone else want to add, or you want me to go to one last question that I have? It's really moving towards where we're in today, pandemic. Did somebody want to?
No, Elizabeth, I would just add that I
Yeah,
can't say it better than Peter said it. I think
Yeah.
exactly right. It's where we need to go as an industry. It's where the best firms are going, and I hope we all can go there together because it's the right place for us to be.
My father got a start in this industry back in the 60s when he joined the Carpenters Union. And for him, he raised a family, and now I'm raising my family, second generation. So I couldn't agree with everyone here more. This is a phenomenal industry to be a part of. COVID, the pandemic of the last year, has really forced us all to, I think, look at the way that we do business, look at the way that we live, work, and play. So any lasting impact of the pandemic that you fortune tellers can opine on with regard to the next few years?
So I do think that COVID will be behind us. I'm not a doctor, I'm not Dr. Fauci, but I'm hoping to look in the rearview mirror and not see it anymore. Everybody on this call makes money because we build things. We don't build things if people stay and work from home forever, right? That helps the Googles and the rest of the .coms, but it doesn't help us advance our organizations. Most of us on the call are publicly traded companies, and we're judged on double-digit growth. And to Peter's point, and to Richard's point, if you're not ED&I and ESG sensitive as a publicly traded company, you're out of business. So that's in the forefront of all of our institutions. But I'm hoping next year to be able to say, what the hell did social distancing mean? I don't want to hear that word ever again going into the future.
There's so much negativity about the post-COVID world, but I think that people are going to realize two important factors. Yes, you can work from home, but if you don't come into the office, you can forget about advancing because you're just not going to get the experience, you're not going to meet the people, and you're going to be left out and you'll be working from home forever at the same job. Secondly, I think people doing administrative tasks can probably work pretty well at home. And so I think there will be some change in the offices that we know. Maybe 10%, maybe 20% of the people on any given day might be working remotely. But it's only when people get together that you get the real creativity that sparks the energy that's New York. It's when you're walking down the street and you run into people and you make contact and you talk about things you're doing. When you run into people in other departments as you walk down the hall, or you're in the cafe in your office, you grab people, and that's when real creativity comes out. So I'm pretty bullish, notwithstanding the negativity around the post-COVID world.
Yeah, say, Bob, and I agree, but I think there have been some really positive lessons learned from this experience. One, we want our staff to come back to the office. So we have to change the paradigm. So it's no longer you have to come to work. We want you to want to come to work. So we've got to change the live workplace scenario so that people want to come back to the office. All the reasons you pointed out, it's certainly from any professional perspective, getting face-to-face time with people cannot be substituted. There's not a Zoom technology on the planet that beats sitting face-to-face. The second is, and now I'll get to the engineering side. One of the things that we've learned is that indoor air quality matters. So what we do in our offices and how we do it for our staff is important. It's important to them and it's important to us. So we as an industry have now got to raise our game to improve the standards by which we have our staff subjected to. Easy enough. And I think those are some of the important lessons learned, and we're looking forward to moving that needle.
Yeah, I would
Very well said, Mitch.
I would jump in and say, I think we've learned to live that we can work more flexibly. We've sort of been stubbornly resistant to some of that as an industry. So I think from the past year, that's been a good development. I also again, I'll use the word amazing. If you go back 13 months ago today, it was a pretty frightening time. And our people went out into the world very, very bravely and continued to move our industry forward in the midst of a very uncertain situation. And I saw that we just, and I know it happened in other companies. I've talked to my colleagues. We found an extra gear as an industry. And I hope that we can all see that and build on that going forward, because it was special. I don't think we should lose that lesson about ourselves. This is a real business, boots on the ground. We build things, we create physical things, tangible things that we can see and feel. And as we've said on this call, move our society forward. Let us live, work, and play, as Mitch said. That is so special. And we just proved that we can do it through a pandemic. What can we do when we don't have the problem of a pandemic? We have technology,
Exactly right.
more flexible working environment. We can kill it, in my view. Diversity, inclusion, safety, caring about people, and in the best industry in the world. That's what I think, for me, is the fuel that's moving me out of COVID into the future. So
I don't think we could end on an even more positive note than that. So I'm going to
Here's
raise
to
my
that.
glass to you all for being an amazing panelist discussion for today. I think we could continue
Sure.
this discussion on for probably another couple of hours, but
Yeah,
I'm going to
okay.
turn it over to our leader, Dominic Servideo, to close us out. Dominic.
That's another thing I hope we never have to say again, which is unmute. Well, look, I want to thank you all so much. You know, that was everything we hoped for tonight and more. And me personally, I couldn't be more honored in being part of this. And it's so clear that we have accomplished so much. And it's so clear that our industry is so vital to the economy, not just of New York, but of the country. And we all do everything that we do more because we love this industry and we love our city. But we have so much more to do. And Frank and I are very honored to co-chair this 100 years. As my mother, who was 4 years old when the Building Congress started, is said, you're only 100 once. So let's get out there and celebrate. And when she reached 100, did she celebrate? And I want to thank all of us that supported the Building Congress. For those who haven't yet, we know you're ready to sign on. And so please volunteer to help us make this 100-year anniversary, honoring our industry, honoring those of the past, those of today, and the generations that will follow us. We are an industry of proud people, and we deserve to be that. And so with that, I'd like to turn it over to Carlo.
Thank you, everybody. Wow, 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 wow. Just you know, I've got notes here that I'm throwing away because I am just overwhelmed by what everyone has said tonight. Sam, thank you for being a great moderator. Applause to you. To our charter members, it's pretty amazing, right? Many of you are over 100 years old and you're still here. Amazing. And you're going to be here at 200 years. To my two predecessors, the one and only Lou Coletti. Lou, you're a modest man. Thank you, Lou Coletti, for all you've done for this industry. Because I don't think where we are without you. And to my immediate predecessor, Richard Anderson. You know, when I started, people said, you know, Dick really took the Building Congress to a new level. And you know, you start a new job and you say, well, I'm going to do things my way. And Richard Anderson, I can tell you, you left an organization for me and whoever comes after me to be very proud of. You left us on a very, very solid financial footing that most organizations would be envious. So Richard Anderson, I salute you for all you did for the Building Congress and for the building industry. And thank you for all that you've done. But now we're ready to look forward. We're ready to say what's next. You know, I don't know if it was Peter or Richard or Lou who said earlier, this is an industry that doesn't always get the accolades. Well, let me be very clear, folks. If you know anything about me, this industry is not only going to get accolades and recognition and thanks over the next 6 months to a year as we celebrate 100, but it is our mission and goal that when we're done with celebrating 100 and we're ready to look to the next 100, by damn, people are going to know what this industry is about. And they're going to remember that when they wake up in the morning, they're probably waking up in a building that someone on this call built. When they take their kids to school, their kids are going to a school that someone on this call built. When they get on a train or a car or a bus or a bike, they're getting on a road, a subway, or a highway that someone on this call built. When they go out to a restaurant for lunch, they're going into a restaurant that someone on this call designed. When they look at the lights out there, we know Tony Mann had something to do with it. When they get on a bridge or a tunnel, when they go home to Westchester or New Jersey or Long Island or Brooklyn or Queens or the Bronx, one of you built that. When they finally go back on business trips, they go to an airport that one of you, and I'm not going to name names because you know who's building LaGuardia, Skanska, or anyone else out there doing things at Kennedy or Newark Liberty International, one of you built it. You get my point, folks. There's nothing that we do as human beings that is not touched by the people on this call, by one of our charter members, by one of the people who founded this organization. And that's what I'm excited about. And you know what? It's time to talk about it. It's time to celebrate it. It's time to read the amazing book that Sam and his team are putting together. And many of you are going to be featured in it. And that's going to come out in September. A documentary that will talk about what happened over 100 years, that will come out in November. Our gala at the Javits Center that I mentioned earlier, Turner and many of you are doing. And I know, Ralph, you're not at Lend-Lease anymore, but Ralph, your fingerprints are clearly on Javits, and we thank you for that as well. And we're going to have a great party, but the party is not going to just be about getting together or drinks. It's going to be about highlighting and a centennial exhibit in the fall that will showcase everything that happened over 100 years. And then finally, we look forward. We look forward to what's next. And what does the next 100 years look like for our industry, for our city, for our nation? We look at it not just in projects, but in the people. Who are the next generation of leaders? And how do we ensure that equity and fairness and diversity and inclusion is part, not just of the conversation, but is embedded in everything we are and who we are as human beings. And I'll leave you with one final thing. I hate obituaries. And when I read the obituary of New York, I always go back because it's the same story that was written in 2008. It was written in 2001. It was written in the 70s. It was written in the 40s, right? New York is dead. New York is dead. New York is dead. So let's just remember, New York will never die. New York will never fade. The skyline will never be anything but the #1 skyline in the world. The people that are building New York will never be less than anywhere in the world. And so when people say New York is over, I like to use a little word that I learned when I worked for Marty Markowitz. In Brooklyn, we say, forget about it. If you don't know what that means, you should look it up. But it means, folks, our best days haven't even begun. And I know that's true for one simple reason, because all of you are ensuring that the best days have yet to become. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm excited about the future. I'm ready to roll up my sleeves. I salute all of you and really thank you again. Thank you to our Excelsior sponsors, to all of our sponsors. When I mentioned Siame Construction, I neglected to mention Joe Mizzi, Thank you, Joe Mizzi, a good friend of mine. And Peter Davern, I'm going to end it with you because Turner, you really came through today, and I thank you for really taking our centennial, you and Patty Filippo and Charlie Murphy, to a new level today. So to all of you, salute, and we will see you in the breakout rooms. Have a great day, everybody.